Personal injury law refers to the legal remedies and defenses involved in civil lawsuits brought as a result of a wrongful conduct by somebody. In fact, the word tort, which is the other name for personal injuries, you can call them torts, comes from the Latin term meaning twist, wrong, or harm. Personal injury is a civil lawsuit, unlike criminal cases, which are initiated by the government. A formal personal injury case typically starts when the private individual, namely the plaintiff, files a claim against another person, business, corporation, or government agency known as the defendant, alleging that they acted negligently. Personal injury law is designed to protect you if you or your property is injured or harmed because of someone else's act or failure to act. In a successful tort claim, and like I said, personal injury and tort are the same thing, in a successful tort action, the one who causes the injury or harm compensates the one who suffered the losses. Every tort claim has two basic issues: liability and damages. Was the defendant liable for the damage you sustained, and if so, what is the nature and extent of your damages?
You always talk about what the Bible says on each subject. So tell us, what does the Bible say about bringing a claim for compensation when someone has caused you harm, and what does it say about lawsuits in general? Okay,
let me talk to you about both of those things. The second one being a little bit more difficult, but the first one seems relatively easy. When Moses led the Hebrews out of Egypt in around 1440 to 1290 BC, he gave them God's laws, approximately 615 of them, oftentimes referred to as the Mosaic laws. The Mosaic laws are filled with tort rules, indicating the depth of the root of tort law in the Judeo-Christian tradition. Precursors of the tort law in the Mosaic law include the spreading fire, which you can find in Exodus 22:6, the straying livestock, which you can find in Exodus 22:5, the uncovered pit. They're all interesting versions of how you get compensated under these different situations, which is Exodus 21:33, the bull goring another bull, which is a property damage claim, in Exodus 21:35, the bull goring humans, which is a personal injury claim under Exodus 21:36, and an injunction to maintain a railing around one's room, and an injunction to maintain a railing around one's roof, Deuteronomy 22:8. When a person presents a personal injury claim or lawsuit, such person seeks compensation for injuries and damages caused by the negligence or wrongdoing of another person or entity. Personal injury damages claimed typically include past and future medical costs, loss of earnings and earning capacity, permanent impairment, pain, suffering, emotional distress, or an inconvenience. The Old Testament provided for similar types of damage compensation to the injured person. For example, medical care: he who struck him shall provide for him to be thoroughly healed. That's in Exodus 21:19. And in the same verse, it talks about loss of earnings. He who struck him shall pay for the loss of his time. Permanent impairment is also discussed in the Bible, and it says, and if he knocks out the tooth of his male or female servant, he shall let the servant go free for the sake of his tooth. So he's giving them compensation on a permanent impairment of losing a tooth by giving them free, and that's in Exodus 21:27. It also talks about non-economic damages, such as pain and suffering. If men fight and hurt a woman with a child so that she gives birth prematurely, yet no harm follows, he shall surely be punished according as the woman's husband imposes on him, and he shall pay as the judges determine. That's in Exodus 21:22. Even though there are no financial damages, the perpetrator must make a payment to the victim, implying for possible pain, suffering, inconvenience, or emotional distress. Many personal injury cases are resolved before a lawsuit is filed. Even after a lawsuit is filed, most about 98% of all personal injury cases are ultimately resolved by settlement before trial. That means about 2% of all personal injury cases ever get to trial. But whether settled out of court or not, in my opinion, generally speaking, there is nothing in the Bible that prohibits a person from seeking compensation for damage related to a legitimate personal injury claim. However, whether or not to seek an out-of-court settlement or file a lawsuit depends on several factors. One is, in a Christian perspective, one is the adversary's willingness to fairly compensate the injured victim. And you can read more about that in Matthew 5:25. The strength and validity of the case, as Proverbs 25:8 says. And also you got to look at the emotional and financial cost of the lawsuit, and that's in Luke 14:31 and 32. Therefore, while you should make a claim for fair compensations for injuries and damages, the decisions to file a lawsuit should not be made hastily, as Proverbs 25:8 tells you. Furthermore, one ought not to file a lawsuit for purposes of revenge. And that is the key factor. We're dealing with just compensation for your injuries, not revenge or not greed or any of those other things. And that's in Leviticus 19:18. The Bible does not prohibit lawsuit, but the scriptures do prohibit only the scriptures prohibit only unjust lawsuits. The second part of that question that you asked me, Mirka, is about suing and what the Bible says about actually bringing a lawful claim. According to 1 Corinthians 6:1-8, a Christian is not to civilly file a lawsuit against another Christian in a secular court of law. Rather, the dispute matter should be arbitrated or judged by a wise Christian or Christians. However, if a fellow Christian will not submit to a Christian-based resolution system, then a number of commentators believe that, pursuant to Matthew 18:17, a lawsuit in a secular law court may be permitted. However, in modern society, there's something added as a component. We have what is called insurance, okay? Christians are obligated to get insurance in the case of automobile accidents, in the case of slip and falls in their homes. In many cases, the person who causes your harm or damage is covered by insurance. So not only is the Christian who is damaged, but the Christian who does the damage is covered by insurance. In an example of an automobile case, what if the insured person is a Christian? In some states, you can sue the Christian's secular insurance company directly. In those cases, therefore, you don't have to sue the Christian who harmed you. That's not the case in Florida. Unfortunately, in Florida, the Florida law does not allow you to directly sue the insurance company who is going to provide the defense and who is going to pay the claim. They force you to sue the person that caused the damages. Obviously, a secular insurance company will rarely, if ever, agree to a Christian dispute resolution process. And they control the process. You bought the insurance, and by buying the insurance, you have money there that will cover the damages, hopefully cover all of the damages of the person that you've injured. However, by doing the insurance, you give up your right to be able to make the ultimate decision as to whether or not and how much to pay, as long as it is within the insurance coverage. So in general, when people have insurance, as most of us in the United States have, even when it's Christian against Christian, it is going to be covered by the insurance. I'll give you another example. If you're seriously injured, out of work, and unable to provide for your family, what do you do if the negligent driver who caused your damages is a Christian? Remember, you have an obligation to provide for your family. That's in 1 Timothy 5:8. Therefore, in that situation, seeking fair compensation via an out-of-court settlement through a believer's insurance company would appear to be reasonable. Moreover, if the insurance company is unreasonable or disputes a liability, you may have to file suit in order to obtain compensation for your losses. The Christian versus Christian issue is, I believe, incidental in this matter in nearly all these types of cases. So where do I come in? In general, I believe that a Christian may seek compensation for injuries from another Christian's insurance company if the claim is pursued without malice or slander or greed. The following advice, though, will be very helpful. Do not initiate anything without first saturating the matter with prayer. God loves you and wants to guide you in the best path. Before you decide on a course of action, you need to ask God for wisdom and understanding. Look at Proverbs 2:6 and James 1:5. You are also admonished to seek counsel from wise Christians. Psalm 1:1, Proverbs 11:14, 12:15, and 15:22. Lastly, before making a final decision, you ought to have God's peace in your heart about which decision to make. And that's in Colossians 3:5.
3.
Okay, let's talk about a specific type of personal injury, an automobile accident. Automobile accidents are an area in which most personal injury actions arise, and it can provide a good example of how the tort system works. You have a negligent claim if you are injured by a driver who failed to exercise reasonable care, because drivers have a duty to exercise reasonable care anytime they are on the road. When they breach the duty and your injury results, personal injury law says you can recoup your losses. I want you to understand that personal injury law is a component of two things. Most of it is common law, which is judges making decisions through the court system. The other part of it is actual statutes that are created addressing tort claims. Together, they make the whole body of law of personal injury. It's difficult when you go to talk to Christian pastors to try to work out a dispute that they would know the requisite laws that have been established since the Middle Ages, plus the requisite statutes that have been enacted for personal injury, and therefore they would be unable to deal with the situation like a court system would. That's another reason why at that point in time you would bring in the court system. I have a personal conviction. When a person comes to my office, I find out what the insurance coverage is for the defendant. And if there is no insurance coverage and the person isn't as rich as Donald Trump, I won't sue them, because whether they're Christians or non-Christians, people get insurance in order to protect their property. Millionaires will get significant insurance to be able to protect their property. Poor people will get sufficient insurance to be able to drive in the state of Florida. That's the difference. People do not have millions of dollars normally. There may be some crazy people out there and don't have insurance to cover against an eventual accident. We're not talking about intentional torts here. We're talking about accidents. So therefore, my situation is, if I find out there is no insurance on the side of the defendant, I will not continue the case. And that is how I work, what I've told you about my Christian principles together with what I do as an attorney. It also makes good sense, because it doesn't pay for you to go through a tremendous amount of time and litigation to then end up with a piece of paper that you'll never collect. Mirka, when you're involved in an accident, what is the first thing you should do?
Well, the first thing you should do is bring your car to a safe stop.
Oh, that means that you're going to, work through whatever the crisis is until your car comes to a complete and safe stop, correct?
Correct.
And what's the next thing you do?
Then you check for injuries.
Yeah, that's important, because you shouldn't be running out of the car looking to take photographs of the vehicle. You should first determine the injuries of, first your injuries, then the injuries of the people in your vehicle, then the injuries of the people in the other vehicle, correct?
Correct.
What's the next thing you do?
Is badly hurt, or the recommendation of the paramedic is to go to a hospital, go to the hospital.
It's very important that you first take care of your injuries. Don't worry about the litigation. Don't worry about a lawsuit. The first thing you need to do is make sure that everyone in both vehicles and any pedestrians, anybody else involved, that they are properly medically taken care of. And err on the side of caution. If you feel bad, you're nauseous, you have pains, go to the doctor. Do not go home, because sometimes those pains can be increase significantly, and the damages can be increased significantly, and you could have stopped the significant increase had you gone to a doctor or a hospital. What's the next thing you do?
Next thing you do is you call the police.
Now, that's a step for litigation, okay? You call the police because you want to know that a record is being made and that the police came to the scene. Many times people say, hey, listen, I'm going to work this out with you. And they exchange information and they leave the accident scene, and suddenly they're in the hospital and they call the guy and they say, well, I never had a problem with you. I never was involved in an accident with you. And then it becomes a lot more difficult to be able to get the accident report filled out, to get pictures to prove that there was an actual accident. If you're in an accident, have the police come. Okay. The other thing I want to tell you about is police reports are privileged. So whatever you tell the police cannot be ever used against you in any court of law. Usually other things, when you tell other people things, they can be used against you in a court of law. But what you tell a police officer as part of the accident report is privileged under the state of Florida. So be candid with the police officer with regards to the situations. Obviously, if you were wrong, you're not going to file a lawsuit. You're not going to bring a claim. Okay, I'm talking about the people who were not wronged. I'm not telling you to lie either side, okay? But I am telling you that it is important when you are wronged to be able to give the police an accurate description of what happened. What's the next thing you do?
Then you exchange information.
So you call the police, but you still exchange information. Driver's license and the insurance information is very, very important. What's the next thing you do?
Then when the police come, then you cooperate with the police.
Yeah, we talked about that already. Cooperate fully with the police because the police is there to help you. First of all, if they tell you move to the side of the road, move to the right side of the road. Their initial and main responsibility is the flow of traffic when there are no injuries. So they have to move you to the side of the road. Do not worry that because you move to the side of the road, you're going to miss valuable information. We're Christians. Think of the people that you're dealing with. So if they need you to move out of the side to the side of the road, move to the side of the road. What's the next thing that happens?
Then you limit your conversation to others.
Yeah, that's very, very important because what you say to others will be used against you. There's no privilege on what you tell anyone, including family members. So you limit your conversations with other people about how the accident happened, about all of the things that occurred during the accident scene. Tell the police everything, but do not discuss it with anyone else. However, if you see that there are witnesses in the area and you feel well enough to be able to get their information, it's very important because once they leave, you may never see them again. So get their name and contact information from all the witnesses. And if you feel good enough, take pictures of the vehicle damage on both vehicle sides. Now, that's talking as an attorney because that information is going to be very relevant to proving your case in the future. But again, I stress, if you feel well enough, don't worry about getting information. Don't worry about doing my job. Get to a hospital if you're bad off. And then we'll worry about getting the pictures, getting the statements, getting whatever it is. The police officer is also getting the names and contact information for the witnesses. And we can always go to the yard where the vehicles are being kept and get photographs. So again, the priority is to take care of yourself medically. That's the most important thing. Don't worry about a lawsuit. The lawsuit is going to be a small part of your life. So what do we tell people are the three most important elements to have in order to get compensation for their claim?
Well, first, insurance, the liability, and the damages.
Okay, that's a little different. Remember when I talked to you a little while ago, I was saying liability and damages are important. Those are the two elements. However, the insurance element, as we've already discussed, is a necessary component because you don't want the process of going through a personal injury claim or litigation is a difficult one. And you don't want to go through that litigation and claim to come at the end with just a document that says you're owed X number of dollars. That doesn't really resolve your problems. So we need to find out about insurance.
So why is insurance important?
People with assets, like I said before, generally have insurance to protect their assets. Poor people do not. We don't want to file lawsuits against uninsured people unless our asset checks shows that they have significant assets to cover the loss, in which case, whether they're Christians or not, they should, under the laws of the United States, be willing to compensate you adequately for your damages. We thank you very much for listening. If you have any comments or questions about what you've heard or have any legal questions, send me an email at info@delamolaw.com, or you can call me at 305-443-7005. My team, together with my beautiful wife, are ready to serve you, your friends, and family members with all your legal needs. Or visit our website at delamolaw.com. God bless all.